The OGADEN War began on July 13, 1977, in the midst of severed diplomatic relations, when Somalia launched a full-scale attack on the southern Ogaden and Bale province. At the same time, the Western Somalia Liberation Front, WSLF, targeted the major Ethiopian towns of Harar, Diardawa, and Jijiga in the northern Ogaden. Despite Ethiopian air superiority, their army quickly fell. By early September, Jijiga, a key regional military cantonment, had fallen under WSLF and Somali control. This conflict unfolded in three key phases: the start of hostilities, the invasion of Ogaden by the Somali army, and the counteroffensive by the Ethiopian forces. Phase 1 was marked by Somali leader Siad Barre's decision to avoid a peaceful settlement. Despite Soviet pressure and mediation attempts, Barre pursued a decisive military action, refusing to surrender his dream of liberating Ogaden. In 1976, Barre attempted to negotiate regional autonomy for Ogaden, but these efforts bore no fruit. With the WSLF increasing military activity in Ogaden, Barre saw an opportunity to strike a weakened and divided Ethiopia. Despite the risk of a war of attrition, Barre was confident that the conflict would reach a rapid conclusion. Somali forces were battle-ready, thanks to years of Soviet assistance, and many units had gathered invaluable experience through service in the WSLF. When hostilities began, the Somalis had excellent intelligence on Ethiopian defenses, allowing them to isolate and defeat Ethiopian units in the southern Ogaden. The Ethiopian military struggled to reinforce their forces as the WSLF took control of much of central Ogaden. By the time regular Somali units crossed the border on July 13, Ethiopia was vulnerable. Phase 2 began with Somali forces invading central and southern Ogaden. Launching a double envelopment of Ethiopian forces, they targeted key regional cities Harar and Diardawa. In the first month of invasion, Somalia sought to disrupt the communication between the capital city of Addis Ababa and Djibouti, an important commercial artery of Ethiopia. The campaign was effective. By November, Somali forces controlled most of Ogaden, including key towns like Riambiro and Harawa. Only Harar and Diardawa stood in their way. Ethiopia, under siege and bombardment, held its ground through heavy fortifications and counter-fire. In the third phase, Ethiopia worked to internationalize the conflict, urging superpowers to intervene and seeking OAU's condemnation of Somalia. Both initiatives were successful. The Soviets, seeing potential American influence on Somalia, decided to support Ethiopia to maintain a foothold in the strategic sea lines of the Red Sea. Consequently, the OAU condemned Somalia and supported military aid to Ethiopia. As we delve further into this period, we will explore how these decisions influenced the course of the Ogaden War. Phase 3 continued. The end of the Ogaden War marked a significant turning point. The defeat of Somalia's army in the battlefield severely crippled the morale of the nation. Despite their initial success in the early phases of the war, the Somali military had greatly underestimated the resilience of the Ethiopian forces and their ability to mobilize international support. Siad Barre's irredentist dream was shattered and a sense of disillusionment permeated throughout Somalia. The Ogaden War had severe ramifications for both nations, and the Horn of Africa as a whole. Ethiopia, despite its military victory, was left to deal with the continuing insurgency of the WSLF, who were not dissuaded by the defeat of the Somali military. The fighting continued to drain Ethiopia's resources and lower the morale of their forces. On the other hand, Somalia was forced to reassess its foreign policy objectives in light of their crushing defeat. Siad Barre's government faced internal dissent, and there was a growing realization that their dream of a greater Somalia had, in reality, led to greater isolation on the international stage. Lessons learned. The Ogaden War was a brutal and costly conflict that provided important lessons for both Ethiopia and Somalia, as well as the broader international community. 1. Over-reliance on external support. Both nations heavily depended on external military aid, primarily from the Soviet Union, to wage their war. However, the unpredictability of such support became apparent when the Soviets switched their allegiance from Somalia to Ethiopia. This shows the dangers inherent in over-relying on external powers whose priorities may change based on their own strategic interests. 2. Underestimation of opponents' resilience. Somalia, despite its initial successes, greatly underestimated Ethiopia's resilience and its capacity to mobilize international support. This underscores the importance of understanding an adversary's potential and capacity for resistance, and the dangers of misjudging an opponent's capabilities. 3. The cost of irredentism. The war demonstrated the enormous costs and risks of irredentist policies. Somalia's dream of a greater Somalia not only led to a destructive war, but also isolated it internationally. This shows the risks inherent in policies that seek to change established international borders. 4. The durability of internal conflicts. Despite a conventional military victory, Ethiopia was not able to fully quell the WSLF insurgency in the Ogaden. This underscores the difficulty of resolving internal conflicts through military means alone, and highlights the importance of political solutions in resolving such disputes. The OGADEN War was a tragic chapter in the history of the Horn of Africa, a testament to the catastrophic consequences of territorial ambitions and miscalculations in warfare. It left an enduring impact on the region and the nations involved, serving as a stark reminder of the costs of conflict and the importance of diplomacy in resolving disputes.